COVID-19 is causing a conservation disaster.
Poaching levels in Uganda have doubled compared to this time last year. We know that poaching's up in Kenya, there's huge pressure in southern Africa.
Species are being systematically wiped out by organized poaching networks.
Viruses and other pathogens are capable of making the leap from animals into human populations with devastating impacts.
We have the beautiful landscapes, we have the wild animals. Why should we lose them? What will we tell our grandchildren?
The world is still grappling with the human toll of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, global experts have issued dire warnings about the potentially irreversible impact on biodiversity.
The immediate impacts of COVID-19 are that we've seen an increase in poaching. We've seen this reported across Africa and Asia. And the longer term impacts remain to be seen, of course, but there is an increased likelihood of increased criminalisation in society.
Many organisations in charge of preserving vital ecosystems rely on tourism to fund their efforts. As borders closed and planes were grounded, this important source of revenue dried up virtually overnight. African countries have lost over $55 billion in the past 3 months. Many protected areas have been forced to cut back the patrol and surveillance teams that protect endangered wildlife.
For example, in a month, we have been earning on average $2 million. The last 3 months, April, May, and June, we have less than $100,000. And we have suspended all capital developments. We can't buy equipment, we can't improve infrastructure, we can't set up new infrastructure.
Those who prey on endangered wildlife for profit have exploited this disruption. As surveillance is reduced, poachers are able to kill animals relatively unchecked.
Poaching levels in Uganda have doubled compared to this time last year. We know that poaching's up in Kenya, there's huge pressure in southern Africa. So we are starting to see the impacts of that now, and that's only 4 months after the crisis really kicked in. So we're anticipating it to really bite in the coming months.
Reports suggest that 10% of Botswana's rhinoceros have been wiped out in a poaching crisis that threatens the species' survival in the country. Rhino horns are smuggled to the Far East, where they are believed to cure cancer and other illnesses. Even when poaching suspects are caught, the COVID-19 pandemic makes detaining them difficult.
When we arrest a poacher, we take him to police, and then police prepares a file that is taken to court. In the process of preparing that file, they need that poacher to remain with them. And by Ugandan law, they can stay with him for 48 hours in the police cells. Now, because of COVID-19, they can't keep very many people in the cells. They have to limit the number to reduce the possibility of spreading the virus.
India is having similar problems. A study by wildlife trade monitoring network Traffic found that reported poaching of wild animals more than doubled in the first 6 weeks of lockdown. This included the killing of 9 leopards.
Species are being systematically wiped out by organized poaching networks, with new poaching techniques and trade routes emerging faster than we can respond to them. Even the Covid-19 pandemic, which is the perfect example of the negative repercussions of our exploitative relationship with nature, hasn't deterred wildlife traders and has only been exacerbated by the increased demand for traditional Chinese medicines as treatments for the symptoms of COVID.
Wildlife habitats are also being ravaged during lockdown. There is firm evidence that deforestation has increased in many countries across the globe.
Overwhelmingly, there's this huge issue around budgets and funding going towards conservation now.
It's extremely important for us to conserve whatever we have that is wild, because it is the source of our livelihoods. And for countries like Uganda that depend on agriculture, these wild areas are the source of a lot of the rain that we receive. And we haven't gotten to the level where we can do irrigation at an appropriate level. So we depend on rain-fed agriculture. And so we need these wild places.
The pandemic is a devastating wake-up call that illegal wildlife trade remains one of the greatest threats to biodiversity. And in addition, the unsanitary movement of live animals and wildlife product also risk causing more zoonotic disease outbreaks.
Our health and our well-being is intrinsically linked to our environment and our natural resources. If we were to lose our natural habitats, not only would we lose our source of life and sustenance, but we'd also be increasing our contact with wildlife. When we increase our contact with wildlife, the chances of zoonotic diseases such as COVID passing from wildlife into humans is increased.
Regardless of what proved to be the origins of COVID-19, it has highlighted the very real potential for poorly managed trade to lead to spillover events where viruses and other pathogens are capable of making the leap from animals into human populations with devastating impacts.
It's vital we protect endangered species and their habitats. That's why the Evening Standard and the Independent have launched our campaign to stop the illegal wildlife trade. Supported by partners including the conservation charity Space for Giants, we are urging the world, act to stop traffickers, stop illegal wildlife sales, and unite to save endangered species from becoming another victim of COVID-19.